when they ridicule me and tell me that my need to do the right thing is embedded in an overweening insecurity about doing the wrong thing, I quickly inform them of three things. First, I inform them that it is nothing born of a need of fear, but everything born of conviction. Second, that it is nothing of insecurity, but it is everything of a strength that is sturdy and amply sufficient to field the most caustic of criticisms cast against it. And third, that this strength is far more potent than the pathetic weakness out of which these criticisms arise. Hi, I'm Craig Lounsbrough. I want to welcome you to Life Talk. Thanks for joining us today. You know, the culture is full of rubrics, really cheaply crafted rubrics. These rubrics are defined by what's loosely determined to be vogue, trendy, politically correct, in lockstep with progressive thought, and anointed by whoever's doing the anointing at any particular time. These rubrics are always shifting, they're ill-defined, and they possess a shelf life that's about as short as the attention span of those who dreamt all of them up. These rubrics are typically granted a sense of rightness and correctedness without any evaluation as to either. They're viewed as defining the current state of societal evolution, as it supposedly trends toward a more enlightened society. Well, you know, these rubrics become the template by which groups and individuals are evaluated as to whether they're cooperating with this progressive evolution or whether they're not. If it's determined that they're not, they're assigned any number of derogatory labels. And these are typically categorized into a variety of negative stereotypes that are held then as defining the persons that they happen to be labeling. Well, you know, there's a cost of not fitting into those rubrics. The cost of not fitting in becomes incrementally greater the more that we deviate from the vogue, trendy, politically correct, progressive thought that's forced upon us. The greater our divergence from those, the greater the cost to us. And this creates a dilemma of identity. Do we borrow the ever-shifting identity of the culture? Or do we press the culture aside sufficiently enough to determine who we are as a unique individual existing within the larger culture? Do we allow any of the elements within our culture to tell us who we are, such as our families, our communities, our jobs, the accepted cultural mantras, or the organizations to which we might happen to belong? Look, the demand for adherence is incessant, pressing, and cohesive. The cultural struggles knowing what to do with people who refuse to embrace the cultural narrative. It doesn't mesh well, or it's considered blatantly adversarial. It's messy and irritating to those who are incessantly beating the drums of lesser cultural agendas. Therefore, the pressure to conform is intense. And the more that we reject what our culture demands that we be, the more alienation that we experience. We're subjected to punitive measures and pressed further and further and further outside of the mainstream culture. So the question is, who will we choose to be? Look, the culture can't define you. It doesn't have that kind of power, and it certainly doesn't possess any such privilege. People and organizations and the larger culture can say any number of things about you. They can criticize you, make declarations about you, label you in any number of ways, or stereotype you in order to force-fit you into their agendas or force-fit you right out of the culture. Yet, you are none of these things. Criticisms, declarations, labels, and stereotypes are far too small to express the fullness of your humanity. These are weak definitions of something far too big to define. Yet if we bend to them, they leave us living out a pasty-thin identity that is truly a horrific exploitation of who we really are. Listen, no element of our culture can define you. No culture possesses the capability to do that. No part of the culture has the depth to define the depth within you. The culture doesn't define you because it can't. The fact is, it can't even define itself. We're defined by something far, far greater than the culture. Something that outlasts and outlives any culture. We're defined by the God who created us. Nothing can define us except that which determined what our definition was to be. Nothing else understands the whole of us except that which created the whole of us. Nothing else understands the intricacies, the nuances, and the ingenuity of a design that lays leagues beyond the intellect of any man or any collection of men. The culture has made many demands of us. Many. Many messages have been sent to us. Many characterizations have been made of us. Labels have been assigned. Definitions have been plastered all over us. Traits ascribed and values determined. And all of this is going to continue. Yet none of these define you. None of them can. None of them ever had. Therefore, don't grant them the power to do what they cannot do. Yet over time, we've carried these definitions. And as we have carried them, we begin to act on them. And when we act on some belief, we are likely to get results that mirror the belief upon which we acted. Therefore, if we act on the things that the culture has defined us as being, the results of that are likely to confirm that we are, in fact, those things. There are 31 things that God says you are, because none of the things that the culture says can define you. You can't be defined by that. You won't be defined by that, and you can't be because you're far too vast to be defined by any one of them or any assorted collection of them. The culture can't do that. Only God can define who you are. He's got the blueprint. The only thing that the culture's got is a few errant scribbles on an illegible scrap of paper that they can't find half the time. Only God knows you from the best of yourself to the worst of yourself. And this God is calling you to your authentic self. You'll find 31 of God's I am statements outlined in my latest book entitled Taking It to Our Knees, Declaring Who I Am. This book is a fresh, entirely thought-provoking, and richly insightful 31-day devotional that will assist you in both discovering and living out your real self. You'll find Taking It to Our Knees, Declaring Who I Am on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever books are sold. I want to thank you for joining us on Life Talk today. You'll find Life Talk on most podcast platforms as well as YouTube. I would also encourage you to check out our daily posts on all of our social media sites. Thanks for being here today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Who am I? I am what everyone needs me to be. My job, my relationships, my family, the culture. I have become what they've wanted me to be. And having lost myself in it all, I find myself asking one of the most important questions I will ever ask. Who am I? And whoever that is,